So the first episode I recorded of this show was with Rain, and we spoke about, we had a similar experience in the New York house, living together, and we were 18, trying to figure it out. But me and him, I guess we're similar to you and Scump, right? If I can make the comparison. Like, we were the two biggest on YouTube at the time.
Yeah.
And we kind of beefed behind the scenes. Not really publicly, but we had some falling out a little bit at the beginning. We kind of were really jealous of each other. We were very competitive together.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, though. Like, hindsight.
Yes. So we speak about it like that, right? We speak about how, like, it made us better. And once we both clicked where it's like, we don't need to compete and want the other one to fail, but it should encourage us to do better, but not, we used to be mad when the other person's video would perform so well, for example. It was bad competition. But there's been
us too.
Yeah,
very toxic.
So I've heard, right? You guys have kind of spoke about it, but you and Scump. But is it true that you guys, like, how bad was it between you two?
I mean, it got bad at certain times. I mean, there's certain things that don't need to be said that you could just feel, especially when you're working side by side with each other. But
you guys were sitting next to each other, right?
Sitting next to each other. Yeah. I mean, listen, man, I always wanted to be the guy, just because I'm not a psychologist, but I think, and I certainly do believe this that I'm about to say. I don't think I'm a narcissist, but I definitely like attention in certain capacities, and I didn't necessarily understand that about myself when I was younger. Now that I'm older, and a lot of things that I cared about then, I don't care about as much now. Actually, little to no things. But Scump was always, I knew he was better than me at Call of Duty. And to be honest with you, I always thought Scump was funnier than me. But the only thing that I had that Seth didn't was that my viewership would be better than his on certain days or most days. And I think he had a couple pieces of things that I wanted to be or wish I was like. And I had something that he didn't have yet. And, obviously as time would tell, that is not true anymore. But we just wanted to be the one with the most viewers. And I think that was like natural at that moment in that era, because if the difference between having like 12,000 viewers versus like 6,000 viewers from an ad revenue perspective on Twitch was a massive change, bro. Before Twitch was really making creators the money they are today. So I think we just both wanted to be the number one guy, and that would get toxic for sure. Like, we'd be playing in a pub lobby together trying to record for YouTube. And it's not every game for Seth, it was. Any game that he stepped into, he could probably upload it at that time for what the bar was and the measurement of what made a good gameplay. And it would just come so easy to him. And there was I think it was on Raid, where I got a swarm kill streak, which was like I think the biggest at the time on that game, but Seth didn't die that game. Or he got multiple swarms, but I didn't die. And he wanted to upload the video, but I wanted to upload the video. And it was things like that, small things like that, that would just chip away at each other, that would make us just hate each other.
It's hilarious because Hecz mentioned the exact same story.
Yeah.
When I asked him about from his perspective as like the leader of the house, whatever, right? Trying to because I'm sure he had to help step in some situations, guide you guys.
Well, the thing was I don't pride myself on it, but I'm hyper aware. I'm self-aware of the things that I say and how people will react to it. And I don't like to have people mad at me. And I definitely know at that time, it's not like we ever took business classes, but I had to stay on Seth's good side for sure, because I knew how good he was. Yeah. And being on his team would be a big deal for me in my career.
Yeah.
So there would be times where I'm like, there's no way that I'm in the wrong here, but I would have to sort of walk on eggshells because I didn't want to piss him off. But there's probably just boiling points where I couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, dude, you are delusional. And I'm sure I was delusional at the time too. I mean, I'm fine admitting that now, but to be honest with you, if I had to go back, I'm like, I don't know if I'm really in the wrong here.
Yeah.
But Seth, he was just the best at everything. So I kind of had to play the game a little bit to make sure he didn't hate me, because if he hated me, I'm off that team.
Really? Wow, that's very interesting.
He punched a door,
feel. He punched the door?
Yeah. He punched it like a wooden door into the master bedroom because he was so mad at me. And he put a hole in it.
Oh, wow.
A wooden door. Not like that's like plywood in the middle, or plywood wood. You'd think I'd know. My dad's a carpenter. It was thick.
Yeah.
And he put a hole. Dude, because Seth was yoked at the time.
Yeah,
that guy could lift weights for like a month, and it looked like he was on T.
I'm thinking back to our house. I mean, Banks you expect this, right? Banks
No
punched
way,
holes
really?
in walls. Banks headbutted holes in walls, actually.
Let's go, Ricky.
I've seen him headbutt a hole in a wall. I went to the hole, and there was like the fattest, what's it called? The stud in the middle, like an inch away from where his head
Oh
went.
my God.
So he barely missed it, but
He'd have been Antonio Brown out here.
yeah, maybe
No
he-
disrespect intended.
yeah, maybe yeah. But hearing Scump punch a hole is different. I've never. I mean, you lived with the guy, so I always know it's different. But I've never seen the rage side of him online. So
He's not that different than what he is on camera. He's
Yeah.
really not. It was just like a
it
different.
happened. We're all humans. Like,
Yeah, bro.
But it's funny. It's also again like it's just interesting for me to hear because again we lived like parallel universes, right, in just different ways. So
We really did.
yeah, it's very interesting. So that's interesting that you say also the way that you're looking at it, of like you didn't want to piss him off. So you felt like he had Hecz. Was it like you think he had Hecz? He had Hecz on his front?
No, I mean, to be fair, I still like we were both Hector's guy, but
Yeah.
Hector's big on loyalty, and I had been around since like day one, and so even when Seth left Optic to join Envy in Ghosts after UMG Philly, Hector left the decision up to me of whether we would let Scump join back again.
Okay, so I don't have the best memory. I was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
So you were still on the team when he left.
Yeah.
Was that because of your guys' beef?
I think it was a combination of Seth didn't like living in the house anymore. There was a lot of, contention between us on certain like weeks or certain months. And I don't think we were playing that well. And so he decided without really talking to any of us on the team that he was going to leave. So he drove all the way back from Philly, I think it was, to the house in Chicago, grabbed all of his stuff before our flight landed and left.
Oh, so he didn't see you guys. He
Didn't see any of us. And I texted him like, yo, I know that we've got a lot of problems, but I always consider like we're friends at the end of the day. I mean, this is just business and like that. And he texted me a very infamous quote where he said, the only thing he said to me after not replying for hours, and the only message I ever got from him after this was, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. On some like sick twist.
You guys definitely meme that now, right?
Straight out of the movie. We don't do it enough.
That if I was you, I would never I would drop that line on him every time I talk to him. That is hilarious.
What's even crazier is that we picked up this kid named Dito for the tournament the next day.
Dito was on phase for a little too. Yeah.
And then we beat him.
No,
And we outplaced
so
him
he
in that
played with
tournament.
Envy. I didn't know he actually played with Envy.
For like an online tournament.
Okay.
That weekend.
Because I know he came back like a week later.
Yeah, he wanted to join the team back, and we were sitting in the laundry room or something. I think we were talking away from all the players, me and Hector. He's like, it's up to you. And I knew at that time, like I always knew, we're better off with Seth on the team than not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how good he was. So I'm like,
I mean, he was probably what?
because I really did like Seth, bro. I thought Seth was hilarious. I liked being around Seth.
Yeah.
Every friend or family member, there's certain things you don't like about them.
Yeah.
And vice versa. But at the end of the day, like you got like a love for him.
Yeah, yeah.
And I knew he was better off competitively on our team than not.
That's hilarious. I mean, he was probably what, like 18, 19 at that. Not even. No. He must have been at least 18, right?
It's 2013, 2012, or 2013, 2014. How old am I? It's 2024, 11. I was like 20, 21. He was, probably like 17, 18 or something.
So it's like, dude,
we're so young.
It sounds like such a rash decision, but it's like when you're that big, you have that much attention, you got making decisions like that. I've heard him mention it too, that like he was like Castro like pulled him to the side at an event and was, like he was like venting to him, and it's he's 17 years old. It's an interesting period of life. It's funny that he made that decision, came back a week later. Because that's a big to go to the house, take the stuff. Send you
Green
that
Wall,
quote.
bro. He was like, "Oh no, what did I do?"
That quote, that text is hilarious, dude.
Yeah.
That's actually I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard that before, but I can't believe I don't hear that more.
Yeah.
I would hold that. I would repeat that every time I talk. That is hilarious to me.
Damn.
You should put that on a T-shirt
I should do it.
with his face.
I should do it.
Oh man. Okay, so I was gonna ask you if there was a point where you guys kind of were like one of you was like it's either me or him, but seems like not really. But maybe that was the closest they got to it. When he
That was
left.
definitely the closest
Yeah.
it got to it. But after that, it was like water under the bridge. And
Then what about you leaving Optic? Right, you obviously left Optic
yeah,
famously again. And again, sorry for my poor memory. I don't know
No,
if
it's all right.
you were competing still, or if you left when you were just a creator, or like what was it like leaving Optic and that decision?
yeah. So it was after COD Champs AW. We won 3 events that year. COD Champs was the one we were supposed to win, and we got 7th, 8th place. And I kind of knew in my head that there was no way at least from my perception of it, that I could stay on the team competing after we lost COD champs. Like, I felt like Crimp hated me. They were probably feeling the pressure that they thought they could do better with somebody else. And at that time, after winning 3 events and Optic being at the biggest it's ever been, this wasn't like a new feeling for me. And YouTube was going so well for me at the time. And I was talking to my ex at that period where I'm like, dude, I don't need this stress. I could go make more money. I could go just do YouTube full time. And me quitting competitive didn't really have to do with eventually leaving Optic. It was more so I just didn't want the responsibility and the stress of trying to keep this team together and constantly being the scapegoat for if we would lose. Why I'm the reason why we lost.
Yeah.
And I really hated the way that losing would make me feel and the way that it would make me react because, like you said, with Norden, you're probably very competitive.
Yeah.
I think a lot of men are competitive by nature, but I really struggled with losing because I never got to feel what it would be like to lose if I wasn't on the biggest team that had the most pressure. And it's a blessing and a curse. You know, like my life is the reason it is today because of those years I spent on Optic.
Yeah.
But I always am curious to see what it would have been like to be a pro player away from that, aside from like the success and my life as it is today, just how I would have been feeling about competing if there wasn't that much pressure to win every single tournament that we played.
Yeah.
I decided to leave the team. I never officially retired. I just said I'm taking a break. They're going to sign somebody. They ended up bringing in, I think, Enable for a couple events, but it was going to be Karma, yada, yada, yada. The rest is history, Dynasty.
Yeah.
But then I was going to LA every couple weeks to see my ex-girlfriend at the time. And, you know, when you're young in a relationship like that, there's not really many things that are going to stop you from pursuing it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave I'm going to leave the content house. I'm going to move to LA. Can't believe I did that to this day. And YouTube kept going pretty well for me. And I was in that relationship for a long time. But there was just a lot of, which, you know, if you watch my stream now, you know how hard I tweak about everything, whether it's the settings in game, our team playing while I'm doing a watch party. I'm just an overthinker by nature. And my biggest problem with Optic at that time was that going back to the thing that we had no salaries and Hector would bring us money as he could, but Hector was always in a really tough position and I could feel the stress. He didn't show it often, but I could feel the stress of him having to make decisions on whether and how to divvy up money that comes in because, you know, you got to make decisions for not only all the players, but then he has his family, he has his own career, and then he has the team. There's just a lot of things I think that circulated through his brain, and he might tell the story differently or not, but that's the way that I felt. And I just felt like if I were doing my own thing and didn't have to worry about the rules of engagement that happen while being on a team that I'm not getting paid to be on, I can't waste. I just quit competitive, which is everything that I've ever known.
Yeah.
And that was what allowed me to have this YouTube career. Brand deals start popping up. I have to say no to certain opportunities. You know, at the time, Hector had told me about some ownership in the company. And with now how I understand it today, I think he was telling the truth.
Yeah.
But just legally and how you file everything from like a corporation perspective and taxes and timing, I started to sort of see doubt in whether he was actually looking out for my best interests or not. Because he had all of these things to worry about. I've got myself to worry about now. I need to make as much money as possible. It's only been a couple years since I dropped out of college.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is forever.
Yeah.
You know, every day I'd wake up uploading YouTube. I'm like, this might be the day where nobody clicks on the video, which I'm sure you've felt a million times in your life.
Yeah.
So at that point, after having conversations with, you know, my ex at the time, and her sister was really big on YouTube, the idea sort of stemmed in my head, well, what if I just did this solo? And it was... Honestly, now that I think about it, the hardest part wasn't leaving Optic. It was sort of like losing conviction in my relationship with Hector because at that point, I thought he was like, and still is now, obviously, one of my best friends. And I genuinely like care about him and his family. You know, I have a lot of like he's like a brother.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're young and you got all these ideas swirling around in your head. And I decided that it would be better for me if I could go try to capitalize on this thing that I was doing by myself and not worry about all this yellow tape, which hindsight now to me was one of the best and worst decisions I've ever made in my life. After that happened, me and Hector didn't speak for a while. I think I told this story on stream or a podcast a couple months back, but I didn't care about the gap between me and Optic. I just, like, you know how Hector was telling a story about somebody up, like, I'm just not going to talk to him anymore?
Yeah.
I went up to him where there was like a party in LA, and he was there, and I went up to talk to the circle that he was in, and I never felt more uncomfortable in my life, which is insane to feel knowing what my relationship was like with Hector.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me, nodded, and didn't say a word to me. And so that sat with me for a long time, for months. And I think I was like drinking one night, and I got on my computer and wrote like an entire like email message, like poured everything out that I had been thinking about to him, and apologized for the way that I handled certain things, and just try to repair the relationship. So I don't remember the exact timeline now, but it took some time for me and Hector to even start talking again.
Yeah.
And even after that, I think it took even more years for us to sort of feel like where I'm at now. Like I texted Hector last night. I don't know why. I was feeling like sentimental, but there's just a couple things that him and I have talked about in the last couple months. Just personal things that he shared with me, whether it's around family, business. And I told him, without sounding corny or dramatic, I'm like, you know, I just really appreciate you sharing those things with me. It kind of feels like the old days and stuff like that. And even when I first was coming out here to visit and record videos, you could tell like there was this, not uneasiness, but since I am, and I've always been like socially awkward, I'm always trying to read people and don't know how to act in certain situations. I could just feel like something was just a little off. Like we're talking and joking around and acting like we're back in the old days. But I think now, as enough time has passed, we're like basically back where we used to be.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it still sucks because 100 Thieves and Optic are separate.
Yeah.
So not everything can be, you know, exactly the way that it was before.
Yeah.
But from a personal standpoint, you know, I think our relationship is as strong as it was back when I was on the team.
It's great to hear, because I've heard you over the years like talk about how much you hate the LA vlog era that you did, right? Like that content, and just and like you're saying, like like those relationships, because that's one of the things that's bothered me the most with FaZe as well, with like the fall off of FaZe, is like, hopefully the rebound is happening now, right? But let's just, when that drop happened for like 2 years, one of the worst parts was, like you said, like some members like Tico, like I'll just say, I mean, me and Tico have a great relationship now, but like there was like friction that we never had, and it was like, it wasn't because of each other, but it was because of things that were happening. And it's like, you know, like I'm the one that's communicating with him, and that stuff bothered me way more than like you said, the disconnect from like even FaZe, or like wanting the business to do better. Like the things that really bothered me was when I had problems with someone that was really close, like Tico or other FaZe members. So again, that I can relate on that. Like I'm so happy that I have a great relationship with him again, and I'm sure you are. You know, you obviously moved here recently, right?
Yeah.
You finally got out of LA. Congratulations.
Yeah, man. I was just tied to it for so long after started 100 Thieves. Like, there's just no way, because I was in the office like 3, 4, 5 days a week.
I'm sure.
So going back to what you said real quick.
Yeah.
Man, for anybody, I think that was a part of FaZe or Optic or 100 Thieves or any other team, anything in gaming, really, I just think the industry was still so young, and is still so young to this day. We were like the first generation of people that had to deal with learning how difficult friendships and business can actually be.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there is a roadmap or a blueprint that anybody was able to make decisions based off of what has happened in the past and used prior situations as inspiration on how to navigate certain things. And I definitely don't think that that should excuse decisions that certain people have made or things that have happened. Mm-hmm. But everybody was so young, trying to figure out their life, figure out what they're supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to be handling, and figuring out and trying to make decisions for so many people who are affected by those things. I'm glad to hear that you and Tico, because I love Tico.
Yeah,
I obviously don't know him nearly as well as you do, but every time when I would go to the FaZe house, I loved hanging out with him.
He's the nicest dude. He really
so
is.
I'm just glad people like us in situations like this can still just kind of like the past be past and just know that everybody was in a tough situation.
Yeah, it was. I know. That's why like I try not to make myself look like a victim, or especially when I'm talking to someone like him. I'm like, dude, I completely understand how you feel about, FaZe. A lot of the FaZe members, I tell them, I understand how you feel about not getting certain things the way it should. But it's like, dude, from my perspective, I was trying to do everything that I could for you guys. But it's like, and for what I thought was the right thing to do too. It's not just for them. I actually thought it was the right thing to do too. But it's like, I'm hitting a brick wall at the top with the board or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
on top of all that, too, it all being public and having hundreds of thousands of people's comments and views and everyone watching it's rough. And again, there's way worse situations. Not acting like I'm like,
Well,
feel
here's the
bad
thing.
for us. Like, what did you say? Crybaby cheese. Is that what you
Crybaby
said?
cheese, yeah.
I'm not trying to do that, but it's like, it is also something that, like, again, only few people will really understand it. And you're one of the few people that can really understand what I'm saying. And it's just like, that's why I just swallow it. I'm just like, whatever. Like, I know deep down that I try to do my best throughout this whole time with all my friends. I did not try to do, I made sure I could do my best with everyone. I didn't intentionally do wrong by anyone. It's like, whatever came from it, that's the thing. People, also, I think as time goes by, we all kind of rekindle naturally those relationships. Because again, you live with someone, you live with Scump and Hecz, and these. It's like, dude, they have a piece of you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to not have that relationship.
Everything that you just described is exactly how I feel about certain situations that I've been in. Like, even hearing you say and apologize for, I'm not trying to sound like a victim. The problem is when you deliver messages based off of situations that have happened in front of large audiences, they don't realize that decisions are not decisions as they happen, and what comes after look and seem binary. Like, it's zeros and ones. It's either yes or no. This happened or this didn't happen. But they don't understand, and quite frankly, there's no way for them to know whether that's for good or bad, whether the person that they're watching or trying to interpret was doing everything they could or the best that they could to do right by the people that they were working with. And I don't even want to kick up dirt because I'm not a part of any drama right now, but one day I would like to tell the whole story around like Nick Merckx and everything, because I'm not a victim of that situation. I agree with some things that Nick said. I disagree with others that he said, but nobody will ever know what I was doing behind closed doors to try to make everything work and allowing other people to make decisions on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it I had to just sit there and take when that's a whole nother thing. That's another part that I don't ever talk about just because,
I don't even want to ask about it, but like, I don't know the details of it, of course, either. But I can just imagine.